Hey, what's up guys, Judy here, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how to interact with zkApps built on Mina Protocol directly from your browser, and we are going to be using Nextjs. Alright, to get started, the first thing we're going to do is to do a couple of setup, and first is to install zkApp CLI. And to do that, we're going to go ahead, open our terminal, spanning this so you can see everything, and going to run the command npm install zkApp CLI. You can choose to install this globally. I already have this installed on my PC, my Mac, so it shouldn't take a lot of time. So I'm going to wait for that to load. This takes a little bit amount of time depending on your network speed, and that is done. So next thing we're going to need to do is to navigate into the folder where we want to create our projects, right? So currently I'm in my root folder and I want to navigate to my my development directory. So to do that, I'm going to do cd documents, okay, cd document cd documents dev. And alright, so here inside my dev directory, I'm going to run the command zk projects. That's for creating a new project. I'm going to pass in the name of our project. For this, we can just use let's just call it browser UI. It doesn't make sense naming, but just call it browser UI. And we're going to pass in another parameter. It's going to tell it that we want a UI project, and also the package we want to use, Nextjs, right? So we're going to hit enter and wait for that to load. It's going to ask us a couple of questions. Do you want set up projects? Do you want to set up projects for development to GitHub? We don't want that, no. So we're going to ask us if you want to use TypeScript, yes. Then yes, lint yes, Tailwind CSS, yes. Even though we're not going to end up using Tailwind CSS for this particular project, but you might want to use that in your own project. So we're going to allow that to install, and the time it takes to install totally depends on your network speed and also your PC power. So we're going to wait for that to install. Okay, after basically created our package. So after creating the UI aspect of our project, so it's going to create our smart contracts. So at the end of the day, we're going to have two folders, one contracts and the other UI. So inside our contract, we're going to have everything related to our smart contract. Then inside our UI, we're going to have everything related to our UI. So wait for that to complete. All right, our project has been created successfully. So next thing we need to do is to move into our just created project. So cd browser -UI, and now we're inside. So let's just go ahead and open this in our VS Code just to have a look at what just created. So here, cancel. I'm just going to go ahead and close up this. So here we have our contract folder, which if you go inside our source directory, you're going to see our smart contract, which is written in TypeScript because we're using Nextjs, right? So we have add.ts, which is a simple contract that basically updates states. Then we also have our UI. We have inside our UI we have our source directory, which basically have our app.ts, documents, index, and every other thing we're going to need for setup, right? So we're going to go ahead and change a couple of these files, both the naming and also the content, right? So but first of all, let's just try to run this project and see what it gives us. So to do that, we're going to go back to our terminal. First of all, change directory to our contracts and run npm run build. Then we're going to change directory back to our UI. Then inside our UI, we're going to run npm run dev. This will start up our local development server, and we can go ahead and open up this on the browser. So just give me a second. to make this just massive. Trying to bring this to the screen. All right, so here I'm going to go ahead and open this server that we just created. So here you can choose to copy this, you can choose to just open it directly from your browser. So just press this localhost 3000. So here we have our template, our boilerplate for basically a zkApp with user interface, right? So but we're going to go ahead and change everything here in a couple of minutes. So, and to do that, we're going to go into our next.config.js file, and the first thing we're going to need to do here is to add a page extension, because we're going to be changing, so like I told you, we're going to be changing some of the files here, both the naming and the content. So once we're done with that, just paste in this page extension. We're going to be using page.txs or ts or jsx or by the end of the day we're going to be using tsx. So just add the other ones in case you want to have a JS file, right? Then here we're going to, inside our source directory, our page, we're going to change this to _app.page.tsx, right? And also I don't think we need this any longer, so we're just going to go ahead and delete this document.css. So we're going to paste in 3 files into this project, and I'm going to just walk you through basically what they do here. And don't worry, I'm going to also attach all these files that I'm changing in the description, so you guys can also update them. So here I'm going to paste in these 3 files. So first we have the React core service worker.ts, which simply helps us when we're trying to deploy this UI. And secondly, we have the zkApp worker. So usually when you're trying to run zkApps on the browser, it's very computational intensive, which can block UI threads, right, and start making your web application to hang basically, right? And to fix that, we're going to be using helper files, 2 helper files, the zkApp worker and the zkApp worker client. So here we're interacting directly with Nextjs, right? We are basically using Nextjs to run our smart contracts and everything we need from it. Then here inside our zkApp worker client, we are calling this directly from our UI, right? Why this is making reference to our zkApp worker, right? So I highly recommend you guys take some time to go through the codes, but just to save the time for this tutorial, I'm going to just run through it, right? So we have set active instance to Berkeley, right? And we have load contracts, which loads our contracts right from our build folder, and also have compile contracts, have fetch accounts. I think from the function name you guys can actually tell what it does. And here we have get num, which is a function inside our smart contract which returns the current state, the current number. And here we have create update transaction, right? We just want to update the number that already exists inside our smart contracts here. So let me just go back to the smart contract and so you guys can see. So this basically, the create update basically calls this updates, right? So you're just trying to update this, and we're also going to switch up this smart contract just a little bit before we deploy, right? And here we have your states. But anyways, I'm going to go back to the smart contract. So now we have these 3 files. We need to update our index.js, and it's a lot of things that we need to update there. So I'm just going to go ahead. I think we are going to have to delete this index.js and update our app.page.tsx instead. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that. And yeah, now if you try to run our application on the browser, you're going to run into a couple of errors starting from the 404. So, but first of all, let's just update this. I'm going to go ahead and explain what we're doing here. So here I have going to paste this code, right? So first thing you're going to notice we're doing here is we're importing CSS, even though we're not making use of it. So I guess I should just move this for now. So here we're importing use effect, and also importing our React core service worker, right? And also here we're importing our zkApp worker client. Then we are importing public key field from Nextjs, which is going to enable us to interact with smart contracts. Then we have our states. So basically our app states, if you have worker clients, if you exist or not, to have has wallets, has been set up, and all this stuff, just to track the state of our application. Right here we have a use effect which runs, once any of the states has changed. So inside our use effect, have an if statement that is checking if state has been set up, right? If it has not been set up, then we'll go ahead and initialize worker, try and set up the state, right? Check if account exists. You guys can literally just go through this code, checks if the account exists. What all these functions trying to help us is trying to help us set up Nextjs to run on our browser. And here we have compiling zkApp. So after loading contracts, so after checking if account exists, if it exists, then it loads contracts, then it compiles the contracts, right, and get the public key from our contract address basically. So here after that we're going to have our zkApp client worker initiates a new zkApp instance, right, and also finally get the zkApp state. So this is going to return, in our case, our zkApp state is currently going to be just a single number, so it's going to just return that number, right, which is just app worker client.getNum, right? And here we're going to set all the states with all the new states we've just gotten and updates has wallet to true, because now we are sure we have wallet, because if we didn't have wallet we won't be able to do all these stuff, right? And also set has been set up to true. Cool. So now we're going to have another use effect, right? Basically wait for the account to exist. If not, so what this does is it checks if you have set it up, and it checks if you have set up and account does not exist, right? State account does not exist. So what happens is checks if account, it fetches your account, right? Checking if account exists, what it does is awaits for our worker clients and fetch the account, right? And after fetching the account, it makes sure the account exists here, and also sets our account exists to true. Cool. Now we're going to have two other separate functions, right? One is for sending the transaction, then the second one is for getting the current state of our zkApp. So next is to create our UI elements based on the state of our application so far. So this entire function here is basically checking to see if you have wallet on it. So if you don't have a wallet, it basically renders this component, I would like to call it component, and asks you to install your Arrow wallet. For this project, we're going to be using, for this tutorial, we're going to be using Arrow wallet, so which is the supported wallet by Mina Protocol at the moment. So, and also we're going to have another if statement that checks if our state has been set up, but basically check if you have some funds in your account, else it will direct you to where you can get some testnet fund, very importantly, testnet, right? And here we have our final UI components, which is our main components, which gets rendered when our state has been set up and also our account exists. Mind you, there are different ways you can do your state management and conditional rendering, right? This is just for test purposes, and we're going to rush through everything quickly to save time and make this tutorial not boring. All right, so next thing, we're going to have this conditional rendering, setup, account, basically all these components we created above here. So we're just going to have them render here based on the state of our application. All right, now if we go back to our terminal, let's go back to our terminal and let's run our server again, and then go back to our browser. Let's reload. Let's wait for that. Having compile error, right? So let's go ahead and fix that. And looking through the code, you may notice that our app here we have pages.css, so that's not supposed to be. So let's change that to page.css, then go back. Don't know why this is showing error, but let's just go ahead. I like to copy everything inside the file and then paste it back, right? So let's go back to our terminal and here run our application again, npm run dev, and then back to our browser. And as you can see, we have our UI set up already, setting up Nextjs. So going to wait for that to reload. So I'm going to open our developer tool, go to our console. Okay, all right, so it's already asking me to enter my password, right? It's actually running this code. Hold on a second. It's actually already running this setup codes we have here, right? So it's trying to get my wallet address, which is my account, right? And for now, I'm just going to go ahead and let's just close this for now. Let's close this for now. And I just go to the console. Right, so now we have for now we have our UI set up properly. Let's quickly do one more thing, which is deploying. Right, so we need to update our smart contracts, just a little bit of tweaking, and also deploy the smart contracts, update our contract address. Then we can now come back to the UI and do full testing. Now to deploy our contracts, first, like I mentioned, we need to update our contracts. .ts. So just going to go ahead and update that. This is basically the same thing. So, and what we have here is we have our states, our initial states, and we have our initializing function. Basically initialize our norm when we first deploy, initialize the field to be just one. So if we get the current states after deploying, we're going to see one. So we're just going to go ahead and update our smart contracts. I'm not going to use this current contract we have here, and so then I'm going to go ahead and copy the reverse code and paste inside here. Getting some error. Okay. Let's just go ahead and move this. Let's save. We're going to also set the parameter square. It's going to be a type of field. By the way, field is a type in Nextjs. Then here we're also going to need to set our initial. Okay, currently we can say when we initialize it, let it be 2. Okay, so what we're trying to do here is once we deploy our smart contract, the default or the initial state will be 2, right? And here when we're trying to update, right, so we're trying to get a square of 2 before we update it, right? So here we're going to check current state, we'll get the current state, and we're going to check if this dot num, right, assert equal to current state. So what this line is trying to do is trying to check if our state is the same as our state on chain, right? So if we have 2 here, is it the same 2 that we have on chain, right? Then here we're also going to try to say square dot assert equal, right? Before we update this, we're also trying to make sure that that's our square, that is the parameter we're passing in, is equal to the current state raised to the power of the current state, right? So what this means is just the square of the current state. So raising the current state to its power, that is multiplying. So in this case, we have 2. So what we're just trying to do here is 2 times 2. If whatever number that is coming in here, from our parameter is equal to 2 times 2, because we're using 2 by default. If we change this number to 3, it's going to be 3 times 3. So but for now, let's just use 2, right? So if this condition is met, then we can now update this or set the number we are getting in this square, right? So the square, let's say here, if we're trying to update this thing, it has to be 4, right? Because 2 times 2 is 4, right? So if you pass anything that is not 4 here, it's not going to update the state. And let's just compile this code. So first of all, let's deploy this code, then test it out. To do that, we're going to go to our terminal. For now, let's stop our local server. Let's terminate our local server and change directory to our contracts. Then inside our contract, we're going to do zkconfig. Then we're going to be asked to enter a few things. The name, let's just call it should we call it, let's say browser. Let's just say zkUI, so that it makes more sense. zkUI, right? That's name. Then so going to pass our URL that we want to deploy to, because we are trying to deploy to testnet. So we're going to go ahead just a second. Let me get the testnet URL. Alright, so we're going to copy this. I'm just going to copy this and paste here this graph here URL for the testnet, which is Berkeley, right? So here you see Berkeley.Mina Explorer. So we're deploying to testnet. So, and here we're going to set the transfer fees to be 0.3. Hit enter. We're going to forget this, create a new pair, create an ls. Let's go ahead and call it zkUI and hit enter. Now what is happening is that it has created the account and it's asking us to request for fund this account so that we'll be able to deploy. So if we go to our browser, copy this link and go to our browser, just go ahead and do that. It's this here. We're going to click on request. It takes a little bit of time depending on how busy the network is, right? So we've requested for testnet and we can see our transaction progress here. So currently it's pending, so we'll have to wait for this to get updated before we'll be able to deploy. All right, now once the transaction has completed, right, once it's updated, we'll have to go back to our terminal. Now we're sure we'll have some fund in this account, some funds. So we're going to run zk deploy the name for our list. So zkUI. Sorry, zkUI. Going to wait for that to build our projects. Oh, there's an error. npm run build. So what's the error? Okay, let's see, figure out what error is. Here, let's go to update. Let's go ahead and delete our build. Let's just try to let's build again before we deploy. Say npm run build. Okay, square field. Okay, here we're saying square was not provided. Okay, inside our add.cs, our test. All right, so inside our text and our interact. So we're just going to go ahead for now. Let's comment this out. Send with our test. It's going to comment this out because we're not focusing on testing, and we're also going to interact from our UI. Let's run it again and see. Good. Okay, let's also run our deployment and see. Building projects, generate build JSON, choose smart contracts. Okay. Okay, so using our verification key takes 10 to 30 seconds. So let's just wait for that. That's done. Then next, it's asking us to confirm to send transaction, and of course yes. So we have our transaction details, we have the URL, our smart contracts, the payer alias, and also the deploy alias. So here we're going to enter yes and click yes. So it's sending this to the network. So, and also have to wait for this to basically mine. If we click on, sorry, not just click on control, open this link inside our browser. So we have a pending zkApp transaction. We need to wait for this transaction, but while we're waiting for it, let's do one thing in our code base. So inside our build folder, not our bit folder. So we have tell our contract folder have keys. So have the name of our key. Please, this private key is very private. This is private key for a reason. So our public key, we're going to copy our public key and go into our app.txt, and we're going to need to update one. We're going to need to update this with our new public key, our zkApp public key, right? And let's go back to our browser and check if our transaction is complete. So also going to need to wait for that. And okay, one more thing while we are waiting, waiting for that. So we also need to update one more. We also need to update something in our UI exactly. So here it's telling us expecting we're getting compile errors, expecting one argument but it's getting 0. So because what we had here initially, the initial state is 3, so we need to get a number. Remember our condition here. Let's go back to it. So we're basically trying to make sure that the square is equal to our number times our number, right? This current state times current state, right? And which is at this point still 3, so 3 times 3, right? So if it's equal to it, then we have to update the states, else we're going to run into an error. So here we're going to pass in this passing field, sorry, this passing field 9. So we're going to import, let's go ahead and import this field from Nextjs, right? So later you can figure out a way to basically pass this directly from the UI. Maybe your UI has like an input field where user can type in these numbers, right? Or you can even pass it directly from your worker client, you know, just basically look for a way to navigate the state, or even directly pass it from the send transaction button, whichever that works for you. But for the sake of this tutorial, I'm just going to pass it directly from here. From here, you can basically, if you're calling this function from other places, you can also pass in the parameter. So let's go back and check if our transaction is done. Oh, we still have to wait for it, it's still pending. And one more thing, while we're also waiting for it, let's just go ahead and also navigate into our UI. Here, our UI. Then inside our UI, let's run npm run dev. So we're going to go back to our browser, to our test application, reload our browser. So now we need to actually set up, while we're waiting for our transaction to get mined, right, to get confirmed. So we're going to set up, basically have to, no other setup required from you other than having to enter our password if you have our wallet. So yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and enter my password. Unlock my wallet. So I'm going to connect. It's going to ask me to connect to our app. So if you look at the console, you're going to see a couple of things going on. So it's getting my address, wallet address, and also it's compiling the zkApp. Basically the same thing I was showing you guys in our code here. So basically running all this initial setup, right? So you're not from here, it's basically running all this initial setup, right? Setting our accounts and all this good stuff, right? You need to go back to our browser and wait for it. So once it's done, we're going to notice that our UI is going to change, but not like a lot of change, like just going to have like a different components rendered, right? So let's see what's the most saying. So getting zkApp states, an error get field, either we can't find the zkApp account in the ledger. Okay, I think the reason why this is happening is because our transaction is not yet complete. So guess we'll have to wait for that, because we need to get the state, and currently it's not the block, so we need to wait for it. All right, so here we have our transaction is complete, right? So we can see our zkApp has been deployed, and you can see other transaction details. And here we're going to go ahead and reload our page. So what this is going to do is we're going to do our set up and also get the initial state directly from the smart contract. So initially we set 3 here. Let's go ahead and verify that we set 3 as our initial states here. Yeah, so once deployed, so the initial state is going to be 3, and we're expecting to say 3 here, right? Then after that, we're going to try to update that. Correct. So here we have current state, current number in zkApp, so we have 3. So we're going to try to update this transaction. And remember, like I explained to you, you can have like an input here which actually asks the user to enter a number, right, that is in the multiple of 3, right? Basically the square root of 3. You can just basically tweak your UI to be more fun and basically do anything you want to do, right? The whole purpose of this tutorial is just to get you set up, help you start up by setting up the project, so you can basically tweak both the smart contract and the UI to whatever suits you, right? And here we have inside my worker.ts, I'm passing this field 9 directly from here. Like I mentioned, you can also pass this as a parameter wherever you are calling this create update transaction, right? So here I wouldn't need to enter it in the UI any longer since I'm passing it from the code directory. So here I'm going to test our transaction or our application. So we're going to click on send transaction. So it's going to create proof. So if you look in our console, currently if you follow my cursor, it's creating the proof, right? So once it's done creating the proof, it's going to create a JSON for that and also ask us, request for a transaction and ask us to make the transaction. And at the point of making that transaction, it's going to also check if what we are trying to pass into it is also the same as what it's expecting. Then it's going to update. That was going to run into a couple of errors, or even one error. Going to run into an error anyways. So let's wait for the proof. So it's generating proof, creating proof. Hold on. Takes a little bit of time, by the way. Alright, now so here is asking us to make a transaction, right? So to do that, we're going to click on confirm, and here we can see our transaction hash, our transaction has been logged to the console. So you can click on that link to basically follow up on a transaction. So we're trying to update the state in this smart contract, and once this transaction is updated, once the state is updated, we can come back to our application and reload, or even click on the get latest state. Sorry, I forgot to do that before reloading, but let's just hope that it doesn't update before this transaction gets mined, right? So we can actually manually request it from the button instead of reloading, right? So currently, because our transaction is not yet complete, we still have our current state to be 3, right? So what we're going to do is we're just going to wait for this to complete, and then we're going to request for the latest state. So at this point, it's supposed to be 9, right? So because that's what we're actually setting from our code. So, and while we're waiting for it, another benefit of having to set the entire input up from the UI is that you don't have to go back to the code and manually change this now, because if after updating this, right, if I want to send another transaction, I have to go to this code again and set 9 times 9. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. So 9 times 9, so this have 81. So if we're not passing 81 here next, it's never going to update our state, right? Because the condition was set when we're writing our smart contract. So let's go ahead and check this. Still pending, still pending, still pending. Right, takes a little bit of time, right? Now we have our transaction completed, right? We can go back to our app and click on get latest state. So it's going to get it 9, and you can see it's 9. And if you try to send this transaction currently inside our worker, we still have 9. Right, let's try to update this and see what happens. try to update with a number that is not supposed to, right? Say field.assert9 is not equal to 81, right? So it's expecting 81, so that's an error. And again, in your UI, you can handle your errors properly. Maybe use a model or a notification bar. Just basically do your thing in your UI. So now you can see that it's expecting 81, but it's getting 9. So, and to update that, you can go back to our code and add 81. So now, if we go back here and basically let's reload this. Let's reload our page. If we reload and send this new transaction, we're supposed to have it verified. That's going to generate the proof and also going to verify the proof by Mina Network. Mina Network is basically going to verify the proof and then update this, right? And let's just see. For that, test state 9. All right, so let's send a new transaction. Already you can see that we don't have any error on the console with regards to what we're doing, right? So here we have is creating the proof already. So it takes a little bit of time. Once it's done creating the proof, it's going to request for us to make the transaction, basically ask us to send transaction, right? And it's going to take in the proof and every other thing it needs to, and send it to Mina Network, right? So all right, so that is how you can exactly connect your zkApp to your UI, and in this case we use the React.js, right? So this video is just helping you understand how exactly you can do that. So you can go ahead and adjust your smart contracts and also adjust your UI to basically suit your need, right? So I'm also going to go ahead and attach all the necessary documents. I'm basically going to upload them to GitHub and attach the repo to the description of this video. If you have any question, please put them in the comment section below, and if you enjoyed this video, please consider liking, subscribing, following, and let me know what else you want me to make more videos on. That being said, this is Judy signing out from DT. Peace out.